Can a free streaming app really hide movies this wild in plain sight? Tubi may look harmless at first, but buried inside its library are raunchy comedies, uncensored oddities, unrated cuts, and films that feel like they were made to test every limit. Some are ridiculous, some are shocking, and a few are so outrageous you may wonder how they are still free to watch. But one title on this list goes further than expected. Number 20. Linda Lovelace, Secret Agent 1974. This is the kind of movie that feels like it escaped from a locked cabinet in a forgotten video store. Linda Lovelace, Secret Agent, takes the spy movie formula and drags it straight into the wildest corner of exploitation cinema, where subtlety is not even pretending to be invited. The setup is deliberately ridiculous. A famous adult-era figure is thrown into a spoof world of secret missions, shady characters, and cheap thrill comedy. But that is exactly why it works as a strange time capsule. It is not polished, classy, or even remotely careful. It belongs to a period when low-budget filmmakers chased controversy because controversy sold tickets. For a modern Tubi viewer, the shock is not just the content, it is the fact that something this bizarre exists in the same streaming universe as ordinary TV dramas and family comedies. It is messy, dated, and completely shameless. But as a retro, how did this get made? Pick. It earns its spot. Number 19. Slay 2024. Drag queens, vampires, and a biker bar sound like three different movies crashing into one neon-lit accident. Slay knows exactly how outrageous its premise is, and instead of hiding from that, it dances straight into the chaos. The story throws a group of drag performers into a deadly situation where glamour, attitude, and survival instinct become their weapons. What makes it work for this list is the tone: campy, bloody, funny, loud, and proudly excessive without taking itself too seriously. It has that midnight movie energy where every scene feels designed to make the audience laugh, gasp, or say, "Wait, did that really happen?" Beneath the wild setup, there is also a fun outsider spirit, because the characters are not helpless victims waiting for rescue. They fight back with style. On Tubi, it feels like the perfect modern guilty pleasure discovery, strange enough to click, fast enough to keep watching, and bold enough to remember. Number 18. Summer 03, 2018. One family secret can turn an ordinary summer into emotional gasoline. Summer '03 looks like a coming-of-age comedy on the surface, but its real hook is the way it turns teenage confusion, family dysfunction, and awkward desire into one uncomfortable spiral. Joey King leads the film with the kind of nervous, messy energy that makes the story feel painfully human instead of just silly. The movie begins with a shocking confession from a dying grandmother, and from there, the main character is pushed into a summer of rebellion, curiosity, bad choices, and emotional overload. It is not raunchy in the loud parody sense. It is raunchy through embarrassment, impulsive decisions, and the raw awkwardness of growing up too quickly. That makes it more grounded than many movies on this list. It captures how teenage life can feel both dramatic and absurd at the same time. For Tubi viewers, it works because it has humor, discomfort, and heart all tangled together. Number 17. Grow House 2017. Some business plans are doomed the moment two broke friends call them genius. Grow House is a stoner comedy built on one beautifully simple disaster. Two guys think they have found a quick path to money, but they are nowhere near smart enough to survive the world they are entering. DeRay Davis and Lil Duval bring the kind of reckless buddy comedy energy that makes every poor decision feel like it could somehow get worse. The movie leans into weed culture, broke ambition, neighborhood chaos, and the fantasy of turning desperation into profit overnight. It is not trying to be elegant. It is designed to be loose, loud, and ridiculous, the kind of comedy where common sense leaves the room early and never comes back. That is exactly why it fits Tubi's After Dark shelf. It feels casual, low pressure, and built for viewers who want laughs without a lecture. Growhouse is less about becoming successful and more about watching two amateurs discover that illegal shortcuts usually come with very expensive punchlines. Number 16. Black Dynamite 2009. This is not just a parody, it is a swaggering comedy explosion wearing platform shoes. Black Dynamite takes the blaxploitation style of the 1970s and recreates it with such sharp detail that half the joke is how perfectly it understands the movies it is mocking. Michael Jai White plays the title character like a one-man army of cool, martial artist, ladies' man, street legend, and walking punchline all at once. The film is packed with fake tough guy dialogue, deliberately awkward edits, exaggerated action, and jokes that land because the filmmakers clearly love the genre. That affection matters. It is not lazy spoofing. It is a smart, raunchy tribute that knows every camera zoom, every dramatic pause, and every overconfident line delivery from the era it is targeting. Compared with cheaper parody films, Black Dynamite has real craft behind the absurdity. On Tubi, it stands out because it gives viewers both outrageous comedy and genuine style. The punch is that this movie is so funny because it knows exactly how cool it looks while being completely ridiculous. Number 15. Bromates 2022. Nothing says emotional healing like two heartbroken men making every wrong choice together. Bromates takes the breakup comedy formula and pushes it into messy buddy movie territory, where friendship becomes therapy, distraction, and disaster all at once. The story follows two best friends who move in together after romantic failures, hoping that shared pain will somehow turn into a fresh start. Of course, it does not become mature growth right away. It becomes parties, bad advice, awkward encounters, weed-fueled chaos, and the kind of male bonding that is one terrible idea away from public embarrassment. What gives the movie its Tubi-friendly appeal is that it does not pretend to be sophisticated. It is built for easy late-night viewing, where the comedy comes from immaturity, emotional avoidance, and grown men acting like they are still college freshmen. But underneath the crude jokes, there is a relatable idea. Heartbreak can make people ridiculous. Bromates turns emotional collapse into a comedy of arrested development, proving that sometimes the rebound is not a person, it is your dumbest friend. Number 14. C Street 2016. Political scandals are already absurd, but this movie treats them like a bedroom farce with campaign buttons. C Street takes the idea of powerful people behaving badly and turns it into a raunchy political comedy about secrets, hypocrisy, and the ridiculous ways people try to protect their reputations. The setup revolves around an intern and an apartment that becomes the center of messy private behavior among public figures. That contrast is the whole joke. People who speak in serious moral language by day are caught up in embarrassing chaos by night. The film fits this list because it has that low-budget, scandal-hungry energy that feels made for viewers who enjoy watching institutions get mocked. It is not a polished satire like the prestige political films audiences usually hear about. It is broader, cheekier, and more interested in exposing the silliness behind the serious suits. On Tubi, that makes it feel like a hidden oddity. C Street does not ask whether power corrupts. It suggests power mostly makes people more ridiculous when the doors close. Number 13. The Hot Flashes, 2013. A basketball court becomes a battleground for women everyone underestimated. The Hot Flashes sounds like a simple sports comedy, but its real hook is that it flips the usual underdog formula onto middle-aged women who are tired of being treated like they have already had their moment. Brooke Shields, Daryl Hannah, Wanda Sykes, Virginia Madsen, and Cameron Manheim bring personality and comic timing to a story about former high school basketball champions reuniting for a charity game against younger, flashier opponents. The raunchy edge comes from the jokes, attitude, and refusal to make these women quiet or invisible. It is loud, broad, and sometimes goofy, but there is a satisfying emotional engine underneath. The thrill of watching characters reclaim space in a culture obsessed with youth. That makes it more memorable than a standard throwaway comedy. For Tubi viewers, it is easy to sell Because the premise is clear in seconds. The hot flashes turns aging into a comeback story, and the comedy works best when the women stop asking permission to be seen. Number 12. Breaking Wind, 2012. This is what happens when a vampire romance becomes the target of a joke machine with no breaks. Breaking Wind is a raunchy Twilight parody that takes the seriousness of supernatural romance and punctures it with crude jokes, absurd character exaggerations, and deliberately immature humor. The movie belongs to that specific wave of spoof comedies built around popular franchises, where the goal was not subtle satire, but rapid-fire mockery. Every emotional stare, dramatic love triangle, and fantasy cliché becomes an opportunity for something ridiculous. Is it refined? Absolutely not. But refinement is not the point here. The movie is aimed at viewers who remember how massive vampire romance once became and want to see that cultural obsession dragged through slapstick chaos. On Tubi, it works as a curiosity click. The title alone tells the audience exactly what kind of silliness they are walking into. The context matters because parody films like this are often time capsules of what pop culture was obsessing over. The punch is that Breaking Wind may not respect the vampire romance genre, but it understands how easy it was to make fun of. Number 11. The Hungover Games, 2014. When parody movies run out of restraint, they start throwing entire franchises into the same blender. The Hungover Games does exactly what its title promises, smashing the party disaster formula of The Hangover into the survival spectacle of The Hunger Games, then adding extra pop culture targets for good measure. The result is crude, chaotic, and aggressively silly, built for viewers who enjoy spotting references as much as following the story. Instead of a smooth plot, the movie offers a parade of jokes about blockbuster culture, reality TV absurdity, action cliches, and irresponsible adult behavior. That makes it a very specific kind of Tubi watch. Not the movie you choose for subtle storytelling, but the one you click because the premise sounds too ridiculous to ignore. The raunchy humor comes from its shamelessness. It throws jokes quickly, hopes enough of them land, and keeps moving before the audience can ask too many questions. The Hungover Games feels less like a movie and more like a late-night dare. Can you survive this much parody chaos in one sitting? Number 10. Inappropriate Comedy, 2013. Some comedies try to cross the line. This one starts on the wrong side and keeps walking. Inappropriate Comedy is a sketch-style shock comedy built around offensive scenarios, celebrity appearances, crude jokes, and a deliberately tasteless attitude. With names like Adrian Brody, Rob Schneider, Michelle Rodriguez, and Lindsay Lohan attached, the movie has the strange curiosity factor of watching recognizable actors step into material that feels designed to provoke reactions more than win praise. The structure is loose, almost like channel surfing through a fake app full of outrageous sketches, which explains both its appeal and its controversy. It is not a gentle comedy, and it is definitely not trying to charm everyone. Instead, it belongs to that category of movies viewers watch partly out of disbelief, asking how far it will push the joke next. On Tubi, that makes it a perfect, hidden, wild pick because the title alone warns the audience what kind of chaos is coming. Inappropriate Comedy is not memorable because it is polished. It is memorable because it seems proud of being impossible to recommend politely. Number 9. Sharpstick 2022. Some coming-of-age movies whisper about desire. Sharpstick walks into the room and makes everyone uncomfortable on purpose. Lena Dunham's Sharpstick is not the kind of comedy drama that tries to make growing up look polished, cute, or safe. It follows a young woman moving through emotional confusion, intimacy, insecurity, and self-discovery in ways that feel awkward, messy, and sometimes painfully exposed. That is exactly why it fits this list. The movie is provocative not because it is loud in the usual raunchy comedy way, but because it refuses to make its main character easy to judge. She is curious, inexperienced, impulsive, and surrounded by adults who are often just as emotionally messy as she is. The humor comes from discomfort, but the tension comes from watching someone try to understand herself in a world that keeps giving her mixed signals. For Tubi viewers, Sharp Stick feels like a strange late-night discovery. Part awkward comedy, part intimate character study, part conversation starter you might not want to watch with the wrong person in the room. It also carries the signature Lena Dunham style, where embarrassment becomes storytelling fuel and personal boundaries become the battlefield. Sharp Stick is not trying to be everyone's favorite movie. It is trying to make the viewer squirm, think, and keep watching just to see how far the emotional awkwardness goes. Number 8. Sexual Drive 2021. This movie sounds like a dirty joke, but it plays more like a bizarre psychological prank served with dinner. Sexual Drive is one of the strangest entries on the list because it does not behave like a normal, raunchy comedy. Instead, it mixes food obsession, desire, manipulation, and quiet social discomfort into a film that feels both funny and oddly unsettling. The structure is unusual, with connected stories where an intrusive stranger appears and disrupts people's private lives in ways that are awkward, provocative, and sometimes darkly hilarious. What makes it stand out is how controlled it feels. Instead of throwing cheap jokes at the screen, it builds tension through conversation, body language, appetite, and embarrassment. That gives the film a very different flavor from the broader American sex comedies on this list. It is weird, clever, and uncomfortable in a way that makes viewers lean forward because they are not completely sure what kind of movie they are watching. For a YouTube script, this is the perfect hidden oddity pick because the title promises one thing, but the actual experience is stranger than expected. It is not just about shock, it is about how easily ordinary people can be pushed off balance. Sexual Drive proves a movie does not need to scream to feel outrageous. Sometimes all it needs is one strange visitor, one tense meal, and one very uncomfortable conversation. Number 7, MILF 2010. Some titles tell you everything immediately, and this one practically kicks the door open before the movie even begins. MILF belongs to the old-school, lowbrow college comedy lane, where maturity is absent, bad decisions are constant, and the entire concept is designed to make viewers either laugh or roll their eyes in disbelief. The story follows young men chasing fantasies with the kind of confidence only movie fools can have, and the humor leans heavily into awkward encounters, adult-themed misunderstandings, and outrageous social situations. This is not prestige comedy, and it never pretends to be. Its entire identity is built around being blunt, shameless, and easy to understand from the title alone. That is why it works as a Tubi pick. On a free streaming platform full of serious dramas, thrillers, and action films, a movie like this feels like someone left a chaotic DVD from a late-night rental shelf in the digital age. The cultural context matters too, because films like this came from a period when raunchy direct-to-video comedies were trying to ride the wave of mainstream hits like American Pie, but with fewer filters and lower budgets. The punch is that MILF is not. It is here because it is exactly the kind of shameless, curiosity-click title that makes viewers ask, Tubi really has this? Number 6. National Lampoon's Another Dirty Movie, 2012. When a movie puts the word dirty in the title, subtlety has already left the building. National Lampoon's Another Dirty Movie is a raunchy meta-comedy about young filmmakers trying to create something outrageous, and the joke is that the movie itself becomes the kind of shameless project it is making fun of. It is loud, crude, self-aware, and proudly immature, using the National Lampoon name to signal exactly what kind of humor audiences should expect. The story revolves around students attempting to make a provocative film, but the real engine is the constant stream of absurd situations, embarrassing ideas, and characters who believe they are much smarter than they actually are. That makes it useful for this list because it represents a very specific comedy tradition, movies about people making bad movies, where the chaos behind the camera becomes just as wild as the chaos in front of it. On Tubi, it plays like a forgotten relic from the era when unrated DVD covers promised extra madness, deleted scenes, and jokes too rude for television. Whether every gag lands or not, the film has that reckless, nothing is sacred energy that makes it easy to package in a YouTube countdown. Another dirty movie does not try to clean itself up, and that shamelessness is basically the whole point. Number 5. Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star, 2011. This is the rare comedy where the main character is so clueless, the movie turns embarrassment into a full-time job. Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star follows a painfully naive small-town man who discovers an unexpected family connection to the adult entertainment world and decides, with almost no self-awareness, that he has found his destiny. That ridiculous premise is the entire fuel source. The comedy comes from the gap between Bucky's innocent confidence and the much sleazier world he walks into, creating a strange clash between wide-eyed optimism and adult industry parody. Nick Swardson plays Bucky like a human cartoon, while the supporting cast pushes the film into broad, outrageous territory. This movie was famously disliked by critics, but that actually helps its value in a Tubi countdown. Some films become interesting not because they are respected, but because they are so bizarrely committed to a bad idea that viewers cannot look away. It belongs to the same strange category as cult failures and midnight curiosity watches. Movies people click because they have heard the reputation and want to see if it is really that wild. For a raunchy list, Bucky Larson earns its place because it turns awkwardness, bad taste, and delusion into its main brand. This movie may not be polished comedy gold, but as a "how did this get approved?" discovery, it is weirdly impossible to ignore. Number 4. 50 Shades of Black, 2016. A global romance obsession became a parody target, and Marlon Wayans arrived with a wrecking ball. 50 Shades of Black takes the luxurious, mysterious fantasy of the 50 Shades phenomenon and strips it down into a rapid-fire comedy full of absurd misunderstandings, exaggerated seduction, and crude punchlines. Marlon Wayans built a large part of his comedy career around spoofing popular genres, and here he goes directly after one of the biggest romantic franchises of the decade. The movie does not try to be subtle because the source material it mocks was already larger than life. Instead, it exaggerates the wealthy bachelor fantasy, the dramatic attraction, the awkward power dynamics, and the over-serious romantic tension until everything becomes ridiculous. What makes it useful for this list is its mainstream recognition. Even viewers who never watched the full 50 Shades series understand the cultural image: mysterious billionaire, forbidden romance, dangerous attraction, and endless whispered drama. This parody turns all of that into a raunchy joke machine. On Tubi, it works as an easy click because the title is instantly understandable and the tone is clear before the opening scene. 50 Shades of Black does not just parody the romance fantasy. It exposes how naturally ridiculous that fantasy becomes the moment someone stops taking it seriously. Number 3. Deep in the Valley, Unrated, 2009. Two regular guys do not just enter a fantasy world, they crash into a universe built entirely out of bad decisions. Deep in the Valley, Unrated, is one of those comedies that feels designed for late-night channel surfing, where the viewer clicks out of curiosity and stays because the premise keeps getting more absurd. The story follows two friends who are transported into a bizarre adult comedy fantasy world, turning the familiar fish-out-of-water setup into a parade of awkward jokes, outrageous situations, and shameless genre parody. What makes the unrated version especially useful for this topic is the way it carries that old DVD-era promise of extra chaos. The movie belongs to a time when comedies often promoted themselves by suggesting that the version outside theaters was wilder, less restricted, and closer to what the filmmakers really wanted to show. It is not trying to be a sophisticated satire. It is built around pure fantasy, confusion, immature humor, and the idea that ordinary people would completely lose their minds if dropped into a world with no normal rules. For Tubi viewers, the appeal is obvious. The title, the premise, and the unrated label all create instant curiosity. Deep in the Valley is not just raunchy because of its jokes. It is raunchy because its entire universe is one giant inappropriate punchline. Number 2. Another Gay Movie, 2006. This movie does not gently parody teen comedies. It grabs the whole genre and throws glitter on the wreckage. Another Gay Movie. Director's cut takes the structure of coming-of-age sex comedies and flips it through a loud, queer, outrageous, proudly tasteless lens. It follows 4 friends trying to navigate attraction, identity, embarrassment, and social pressure. But the film treats every situation like an opportunity to push the joke further than expected. What makes it important for this list is not just the raunchy humor, but the way it reclaims a genre that had often centered straight male fantasies. Instead of standing outside the teen sex comedy tradition, the movie storms into it and says, "This can be ridiculous for us too." The director's cut angle adds to its appeal because it suggests a less restrained version of an already outrageous film. It is messy, exaggerated, campy, and intentionally provocative, but that is exactly why it has cult energy. The film works best when viewed as a parody, with attitude rather than a polished mainstream comedy. On Tubi, it feels like the kind of hidden title viewers discover and immediately understand was never designed to be quiet. Another Gay Movie is not asking permission to be included in the raunchy comedy canon. It kicks the door open, makes a scene, and dares the viewer to keep watching. Number 1. Wetlands 2014. This is the movie that turns personal boundaries into a demolition site. Wetlands is easily the most shocking pick on this list because it does not treat raunchiness as simple joke material. It turns bodily taboo, emotional damage, rebellion, and loneliness into one strange, fearless character study. Based on Charlotte Roche's controversial novel, the film follows Helen, a young woman whose behavior is deliberately provocative, often uncomfortable, and impossible to separate from her deeper need for attention, control, and connection. What makes Wetlands so powerful as the number 1 choice is that it uses shock with a purpose. The outrageous moments are not just there to make the viewer gasp, they reveal a character who is trying to process family fracture, insecurity, and identity through extreme behavior. That is what separates it from the broader parody comedies lower on the list. Wetlands can be funny, gross, sad, rebellious, and weirdly vulnerable all at once. It is the kind of film viewers remember because it refuses to behave politely. On Tubi, it feels almost unbelievable as a free streaming discovery because it has the reputation, the controversy, and the nerve to match the title of this countdown. The punch is that Wetlands does not merely cross the line for cheap shock. It asks why the line exists, who gets to draw it, and what happens when one character decides to erase it completely. So, which Tubi pick shocked you most? The shameless comedy, the strange cult oddity, or the movie that made you pause and wonder how it stayed free? Drop your wildest reaction in the comments, because this list only scratches the surface. Like, subscribe, and come back soon, because Tubi's hidden shelf gets stranger, louder, and more dangerous every year.